Hello, hello, DMG's Jim here, continuing on with our audiobook of the 2024 Dungeons Master's Guide, a gentle reminder to RTFM. When in doubt, read the frickin' manual or listen to an audiobook of the manual. A lot of times, reading the information and owning the information for yourself can help with information synthesis, being able to make connections between two different things to move forward. While there's a ton of commentary and lots of video how-tos, I'm an old school guy. I'm a firm believer in when you read or assume the information as your own, you're able to make better creative choices with it. You're able to adapt the information to your needs and your campaigns rather than hoping that someone gives the perfect video answer to the situation you might have. So with that in mind, we are reading the manual, going through bit by bit, line by line, word for word. But this is my Chapter 4 preamble. Chapter 4 is all about creating adventures, okay? This is going to start bringing some of the things that we talked about in Chapter 3 into our toolbox mode into actual play and application. Chapter 3 is just a collection of all of the stuff, all of the tools, all of the things that can be part of an adventure, whether it's traps or whether it's prestige awards, social encounters, on and on and all. All of the things that we've been talking about in chapters, specifically chapters 2 and 3, start manifesting in Chapter 4. Remember, your Chapter 1 was your Session 0 stuff, table management, personality management, establishing an understanding and establishing conversation points and agreement points between you and your players on why we're playing D&D, what we want to do when we're playing, what we all find fun for our game sessions. Chapter 2 breaks down a lot of the terminology, as it were, gives you more concrete ideas to take what you learned in Chapter 1 and start turning it into adventures. Chapter 3 gives you the toolbox to build and to construct all of the stuff that's coming up now in Chapter 4, the adventures, creating adventures. Again, this is my preamble. We might read the step-by-step adventures in the beginning section. We'll see here in a minute. But creating adventures, this is for you to either create your own homebrew or to adjust published modules. If you're using pre-built campaign module books, Storm King's Thunder, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, Princes of the Apocalypse, Curse of Strahd, whatever, the majority of what is in the creating adventures and is in the toolbox are represented within the text of that book. It's going to give you the DCs for traps, going to give you the damage for stuff. It'll give you information on the non-player characters, the basic plots, all this kind of stuff. The creating adventures is for your building. You're building your own original adventures, your home brewing, your world building, or you're adapting and altering adventures within a module. So this is a very important section. This section ain't going to mean to a new dungeon master. This section is not going to mean a lot to you if you're not aware of chapters 1 and 2 and 3. A lot of references to toolboxes and adventure ideas that were in the previous chapter. So please, 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 if you haven't read the book yet or haven't listened to those sections, go ahead and start with chapters 1, 2, and 3. The redesign of the 2024 Dungeon Master is to give you step-by-step building blocks to get to becoming a better DM, a proficient DM. The information that's in the 2024 is very similar to the 14, but the organization and the presentation in 2024's version is much clearer, especially for a new DM. Now, if you're an experienced DM, you've been around the block, I appreciate your time being here. I really do. But you'll probably acknowledge there's not a ton of new stuff in the 2024 from what you already know. If you've been running games for 3 or 4 years or 30 or 40 years, I'm not going to say it's the oh my god must read, but it is still a good book. So enough about my preamble. Now we're starting to put all of our stuff together. Chapter 4, Creating Adventures. Let's get into it here after my little bit of a start there. So, whether you're creating your own adventures or using published ones, this chapter helps you create fun and memorable experiences for your players. Creating an adventure involves blending scenes of exploration, social interaction, and combat into a unified whole that meets the needs of your players and your campaign. The basic elements of good storytelling should guide you throughout this process, joining the encounters into a coherent story. Step-by-step adventures. Follow these steps to create an adventure. Number 1, lay out the premise. Determine the situation or conflict that underscores the adventure. Also think about that adventure setting and what is unique and fun about it. Step number 2, draw in the players. Think about how the characters would get drawn into the situations that you've established. Consider how the adventure might tie in with the character's goals. Step 3, plan encounters. Determine the encounters or events that take the characters from the beginning of the adventure to the end. Step 4, bring it to an end. How do you expect the adventure will end? Think about the possible endings as well as rewards for the characters. And the rest of this chapter is going to offer inspiration and advice for each of these 4 steps. We're going to get into a lot of details when we in each section. Real quick, using published adventures as a sidebar. A published adventure includes a pre-generated scenario with the maps, NPCs, monsters, and treasures that you'll need to run it. This allows you to focus your preparation time on plot developments that arise from the character's actions. You can adjust a published adventure so it better suits your campaign and appeals to your players. For example, you can replace the villain of an adventure with one the players have already encountered in your campaign, or add details from your campaign setting so the adventure involves your players' characters in ways that the adventurer's designers never could have imagined. Published adventures also provide inspiration for your own adventures. You can even take part of an adventure and incorporate it into a different one. For example, you might use the map of a temple but repopulate it with monsters of your choice, or you might use a chase sequence as a model for a pursuit scene in your campaign. And that's going to be the end of the read for this section. A little bit of comments. Yes. Published adventures are a huge resource for you as a DM. Even if you never intend to run one, you are hell-bent on creating a world from scratch, an adventure from adventures and stories and plots and continents and kings and queens and gods and magic from scratch. That's great. A published adventure can give you some structure to lean on. It can give you some ideas. It can give you some tools. It can give you some maps. It can give you some names. Most importantly, it is a recognized published method to tell a story. You can take a lot of cues from an adventure, even if you never follow it. Take Icewind Dale is one that I use a lot on my stream to both describe the good and the bad. There's a lot of sandboxing in here, and there's a lot of railroading in here. A lot of abrupt stops and starts within the adventure. Not every adventure, most published adventures aren't going to fit your campaign perfectly. Even if you just start a game out, and we're going to start out at level 1, and we are going to play through Princes of the Apocalypse as it's written, I guarantee you your players will make decisions, will make choices, will make friends and enemies that the writers of that book did not anticipate and could never plan for. So even if you're using a published adventure, this section is going to be very important for you. Even if you're using homebrew, a published adventure can provide a lot of information. I know a lot of people have feelings one way or another about published settings and public campaigns and public adventures. I'm not here to tell you anything other than everything is useful for your DM's toolbox. Nothing is required for you to own to play D&D. You don't have to have all of these adventure books, but they are going to be an asset as you move forward into campaign and adventure development. So I'm going to go ahead and end this little preamble here, and we're going to get into the nuts and bolts, the nitty-gritty of Chapter 4, Creating Adventure, in future videos. Thank you so much for hanging out. Like I said, this is just our intro to Chapter 4. We'll get into the nuts and bolts in coming videos. Likes, follows, subscribes are appreciated. Anything you want to do to help a brother out, let your friends know that this series is going on. Join us over on Twitch if you want to jump into a live chat. All of the kind of support, any support that you want to give us is greatly appreciated on this channel. DM Geezer Jim signing out. We'll see you for the meat and potatoes of Chapter 4 in the next video.